It is the essence of the leader, his base, his mana. In his landmark book, True North, Harvard Business School professor Bill George argues that the essence of a great leader is about being genuine, real, and true to who you are. It's an approach reflected within the All Blacks camp. Anoka says of McCaw, people say to him, "How do you manage the public arena?" And he said, "Well, it's easy because what you see in public is exactly what I'm like in private." Most leaders who fail, Bill George says in an interview with Pamela Hawley, really suffer from a lack of a strong identity, belief in themselves, and to be frank, respect for themselves. When leaders are disrespecting others, it really starts with themselves. First, we do need to take a look at the meaning behind life. He says, leaders need to think, why are you here? What's your purpose? How do I use my time here? It is reminiscent of Buckminster Fuller. What is my job on the planet? What is it that needs doing that I know something about that probably won't happen unless I take responsibility for it? I believe that leadership begins and ends with authenticity, says George. It's being yourself, being the person you were created to be. Adopting the styles of other leaders is the opposite of authenticity. Your time is limited, Steve Jobs said in his now famous 2005 Stanford commencement address. Don't be trapped by dogma, and most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Authenticity is the opposite of Jean-Paul Sartre's malvaise foi, or bad faith. Bad faith occurs when peer pressure and social forces combine to have us disown our own values. It is an accommodation we make with society to fit in, a psychological selling out in which we forsake our own freedom and self-expression for the conformity of the crowd. Worse, it stands between ourselves and ourselves. It stops us knowing our true nature, which cauterizes our mana. In Essays in Existentialism, Sartre uses the example of the waiter whose style has become mannered, quick and forward, a little too rapid. This distance between self and self-projection, reality and identity betrays him, removes him from his true purpose, and alienates those around him. On the other hand, authenticity allows us to author our own lives, to make our own original imprint, and to write our own story in a voice that is true to our values. I want to live an authentic life, says Anton Oliver. But of course, to do that, you have to understand who you are first, to have a baseline to keep referring back to. And this begins with honesty and integrity. First, honesty. In the belly, not the back, is how Gilbert Anoka describes it. The ability to deliver honest feedback. Owen Eastwood considers it a prerequisite of a peak performing environment. The key to strong peer-to-peer interaction is a high level of trust. This is trust in the sense of vulnerability. The leaders need to create an environment where individuals get to know each other as people and gather insight into their personal story and working style. This needs to be supported by the leader's role modeling behavior around admission of mistakes and weaknesses and fears. This is essential for safe conflict and safe confrontation, where the most important interaction often occurs. I think early on we didn't deal with losing very well, says Anton Oliver. It was very much point the finger at everyone, very isolated. That changed a lot as the team became more collective, took the burden of loss equally, shared it. I enjoy watching the game together as a team because everything's out in the open, says Andrew Metrans. Your missed tackles are out in the open. Things you have done well are out in the open. Being able to say to another guy and just being matter of fact without it being a personal judgment, you need to be doing this to help me out with my job. Or equally, what can I do that helps you do your job? If you're able to do that, Metrans says, I think you've got a good team. And then integrity. Integrity comes from the Latin integritas, or integer. It means being whole and undivided. It is the ethical accuracy of our actions. Integrity means that our thoughts and words and deeds are as one, a chiropractic alignment in which our core values, purpose, beliefs, and behaviors all flow in the same direction. It's useful to think of integrity not as morality, as many people do, but as workability. It is not about being pure or noble. It's about getting stuff done. Through the end result is trust, belief, and respect. They are merely the byproducts of the fact that when we say something will happen, it actually does happen. This means that others can count on us to deliver, and most importantly, that we can count on ourselves. In a paper published at Harvard Business School, Michael C. Jensen, Werner Erhard, and Steve Zaffron explore the relationship between integrity and performance. In the abstract, for their motto, integrity, where leadership begins, they define their terms. Integrity in our motto is honoring your word. As such, integrity is a purely positive phenomenon. It has nothing to do with good versus bad, right versus wrong behavior. Like the law of gravity, the law of integrity just is, and if you violate the law of integrity, you get hurt just as if you tried to violate the law of gravity with no safety device. The personal and organizational benefits of honoring one's word are huge, both for individuals and for organizations, and generally unappreciated. It is a simple and powerful concept. Integrity is, they say, a factor of production as important as knowledge or technology that provides access to incredible increases in performance. Think of the time wasted at meetings in which people are late or don't turn up. Deadlines that drift, phone calls never made because something came up, checks in the mail, relationships ruined because one side let the other side down, systems failing to mesh to adhere to work together properly. But what if they did? What if everything worked like clockwork together, predictably and on time? Jansen et al. Posit what they call the ontological law of integrity. To the degree that integrity is diminished, the opportunity for performance is diminished. That is, the more slippage there is, the less gets done, and the less slippage, the more traction. They compare it to a bicycle wheel. If spokes are missing, the wheel works less efficiently. If all the spokes are in place, it's as efficient as it can possibly be. Integrity means all the spokes are in place all the time. Unsurprisingly, there is a rigorous integrity within the All Blacks camp and almost total accountability. When deeds speak, says Wayne Smith, words are nothing. If someone says they'll do something, you can be sure they will do it. If they say they'll be somewhere, they will be there. In fact, they work to Lombardi's rule. If you're not early for a meeting, you're late. Many set their watches 10 minutes fast. No one is late for the bus. No one wants to let anyone down. It gets the job done. If we have a compelling purpose, high expectations, and clear goals, but we don't honor them, we get nowhere. But by focusing on this specific area, on accuracy of action, we can change the relationship we have with our own thoughts, and this is tremendously powerful. Rather than vague ideas and intentions, if we are our word to ourselves, then our thoughts become more committed, intentional, and decisive. They become agents of change. Authenticity, according to leadership writer Lance Secretan, is the alignment of head, mouth, heart, and feet. Thinking, saying, and doing the same thing consistently. This builds trust, and followers love leaders they can trust. If leaders make their word a commitment, I'm going to make this happen, tremendous things begin to occur, and businesses, empires, fortunes, and legacies are built. If the conversation we have with ourselves has integrity, then the results can be revolutionary. There's an old story about J.P. Morgan, the banker and philanthropist, who was shown an envelope containing a guaranteed formula for success. He agreed that if he liked the advance written inside, he would pay $25,000 for its contents. Morgan opened the envelope, nodded, and paid. The advice? Every morning, write a list of the things that need to be done that day. Number 2, do them. By being aware of integrity slippage, we can cultivate discipline, intention, and action, both personally and within our teams. If we speak with integrity, our word becomes our world, a commitment, a declaration of intent, a generative force. It allows us to speak with optimism and possibility, resilience and determination, decisiveness and authority. It helps us survive any setback, and it helps us begin the long climb back upwards again. With an authentic voice, we have authority. We can author our own story. Know thyself. And recognizing our deepest values, we can understand what kind of leader we are and what kind of life we wish to lead. Authenticity, the mark of a true leader, begins with honesty and integrity. Honesty allows us access to our true vision of ourselves, and when setbacks occur, gives us strong foundations. Integrity gets the job done. If our values, thoughts, words, and actions are aligned, then our word is our world. With accuracy of action, less slippage occurs between thought and deed. And knowing ourselves, we live our vision. By being our word, we make it happen. Know thyself. Keep it real. He tangata ke tabi. He tangata ke tahi. A person who can be taken at his word. Chapter 11. Sacrifice. Gatu te ihihi. Stand fearless. Champions do extra. Find something you would die for and give your life to it. I was in the hotel, says Benson Stanley, a young man about to make his All Blacks debut, when one of the senior guys comes up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and gave me 2 questions to think about. First, what do I have to offer the team? And second, what am I prepared to sacrifice? He pauses. Pretty big questions. That night, Stanley and a number of other rookies were called in front of the team. They answered the questions. What can I offer? What will I sacrifice? Then a few of the senior players, Richie McCaw, Conrad Smith, Brad Thorne, spoke about what it means to be an All Black, the legacy, the standards, and the players who have laid their bodies on the line before them. Then the whole team performed a haka to welcome the new recruits and to challenge them. From then on, I knew it was the big time, says Stanley. That's when he knew he was an All Black. Initiation ceremonies ease the transition from one state into another, writes Joseph Campbell, and myths to live by. From youth to maturity, freedom to responsibility, life into death, they are a psychological passageway, a process of becoming. A ritual is an enactment of a myth, Campbell says. By participating in a ritual, you are participating in a myth. A primary All Blacks myth is the idea of sacrifice. Giving everything for the team, bleeding for it, putting your balls on the line. Give everything you have and a little bit more. Champions do extra. It's Brad Thorne talking now. The opposite of a rookie, Thorne played more than 200 rugby league games for the Brisbane Broncos before switching codes and playing 60 tests for the All Blacks, becoming a World Cup final winner, and honors won and respect earned. He's one of the most successful rugby players of all time. As he talks, younger All Blacks strain to hear what he has to say. He was a lazy kid, he says, but his father had a motto that he now uses every day. Champions do extra. First to arrive at the gym and the last to leave. Thorne's motto means he always adds something extra to the end of every routine. An extra rep, an extra 10 minutes, an extra set, an extra circuit. 5 minutes to go in the test match, he asks. Who wants it more? There is a saying, there are no crowds lining the extra mile. On the extra mile, we are on our own, just as, and the road, just us, and the blank sheet of paper, just us, and the challenge we've set ourselves. It's the work we do behind closed doors that makes a difference out on the field of play in whichever field we compete, whether we're in a team, leading a business, or just leading our life. Much has been written about the agony of the long-distance runner, the loneliness of the artist in their garret, and the kinds of sacrifice of time, comfort, socializing, hedonism, and that it takes to make the transition from ordinary to extraordinary, good to great. But the winning difference is most neatly encapsulated in the mantra given to Thorne by his father. Champions do extra. Another father, another gift to a promising son. Neville Carter wanted to give his son Daniel something